Hi, welcome back to 3D Printed Soup, the channel that prints its own minis and cuts its own hair. At least with the coronavirus going on at the moment. I've got a few friends now who have gone out and bought 3D printers and they're looking to sort of start printing stuff. But I've had lots and lots of questions from them about where do I start, what to watch out for, what filament do I get, where do I even get 3D printed files? Well, I thought I'd do a quick video just to get you started because a load of people have gone out and bought new printers recently and there's tons of videos online with this kind of stuff, but this is my own personal take. So let's start at the beginning with my top 5 things you're going to watch out for when you're doing 3D printing. Now I tend to go to Thingiverse. I mean there's loads of other places, there's Cult 3D and there's 3D Files, but I like Thingiverse because it's nicely set out and it's one of the largest repositories of 3D printed files. But there are a lot on there and not all of them are great quality. Not all of them are designed to be printed. Thingiverse isn't just for 3D printing, it's just a way to show off your 3D files that you've done in computer-aided design software. Best way to choose which ones you want are either go to most popular and have a look on there and see what people have been doing, but I prefer going to number of makes. So type in what you want, anything from coat hooks to miniatures to DnD to engine parts. Then click sort by number of makes. You'd be amazed how many of these things look great, but when you actually get around to printing them, they'll collapse, they'll fall to bits, they'll string up because they're not actually designed to print. See what your print looks like when it's actually being built, because it's all very well looking at the nice computer aided design picture in blue showing basically what it's going to look like when you open it in Cura. It's another thing to see what it looks like once you've run it through for 5 hours worth of printing and you've realised that some of the dimensions are off or it's going to basically not be suitable for the printer you've got. So yeah, do number of makes and you're guaranteed to find something which is at least going to work on the printer you've got. And also you'll be able to see exactly what you're going to get when you finish your 5 to 10 hours worth of printing. Make sure your bed is level. I mean, if you've got an expensive printer, it's going to auto level for you. If you've got an intro level printer like the Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro, you're going to have to twist the knobs on the bottom, get the springs right and make sure it's flat. There's tons of videos online showing you how to do that, so I'm not going to go into that here, but yeah, make sure your bed is level and make sure your bed is clean and flat. Make sure there's nothing left over from it. Make sure there's no extra little bits or there's no fluff, nothing that might stop your print from adhering to the bed. Once you've got that, that's pretty much a good 50% of all your worries there is going to be whether your bed is level. Check the temperature on the PLA you're going to be using on your PLA printer. On the side of it, you'll see a label and you'll see the diameters and the temperature, or temperature because this is a German one. Let's do the English. Here we go, tolerances, but yeah, temperature. This one's 190 to 220. That's the optimum areas where this is going to melt. Anything lower than that, it ain't going to get through your printer head. Anything higher than that, it's going to start having problems. It's not going to basically set as quickly. It will stay hot and then your printer head will go over it a second time and tear it off. So you'll start tearing levels off and you'll get fluffing and all kinds of things. So I usually print between 215 and 220. Right, next tip is possibly the most important tip. Stay and watch the first level print. Make sure your layer, the first one, the one which touches your print base, is secure. It's not curling up at the edges, it hasn't got any bubbles, it hasn't got any kind of lumps and bumps and imperfections. It's a nice flat surface that's adhered to your bed. If after the first layer your print head starts knocking into bits and pieces and starts joggling around where it's grinding. You'll hear a noise, you'll see it jumping up and down a bit. Stop the print, remove, clean the print bed, line it back up again, make sure your bed's level properly, make sure that your runners are correct and that the belts haven't basically been knocked out slightly, which is making it print slightly off. Once you've got it all back to normal and set up properly, start again and watch your first layer print. Once your first layer is down, the rest of the print will then be secure and safe on that first layer. You know it's not going to peel off, it's not going to snap, you're not going to get bits bumping around the place, and you're not going to get over or under extrusion, which will cause your print to ruin and have defects if it doesn't actually fail the print completely. And you end up with lovely plastic spaghetti everywhere, which looks artistic, but it's a pain in the ass. You will learn to basically hear when your printer doesn't print that first layer right. So just look, listen, watch. Once you've got the first layer down, the rest of it's cream cheese. Keep an eye on your print. Yes, you can leave it printing for 12 hours, walk away, and that's fine. If you're pretty much confident enough or foolhardy enough to think, you know what, that's going to print fine, I'll click print, watch your first layer print, that's gone fine, just walk away, go to work, go out, come back later, and either come back to a beautiful 3D sculpture or plastic spaghetti, one of the two. But if you can, just pop in every now and then. Look at the layers. Has there been any shift in them? Is there any gaps and bits that you might need to stop the print and restart again? Because once there's been a problem, once there's been a gap, you can't fix that. That's the print. It's off. It's never going to be as good as it could be. Yes, sometimes you can print something, like I printed a Groot once and halfway up it jumped slightly and there's a line and I was able to sand that down and paint over it and fill it a bit with some putty and it looked perfectly fine. But had I seen that happen when it happened, I would have stopped the print and restarted it. So yeah, watch your prints. Also listen to them. You'll get to know what your printer sounds like. You'll get to know the nee and the chunk noises as it hits each side. And if you start hearing noises which aren't familiar to you, walk over to your printer and make sure there's nothing catching, make sure your filament spool hasn't jammed, just make sure it's not over or under extruding. Learn to listen, love and fear strange noises from your printer. Like any piece of machinery, it will tell you if it's hurting and you'll be able to work out what's happened to it just purely from the noises it makes. But when you first start off, if you start hearing weird noises, check your print. If it's gone wrong, start again. Okay, that's enough tell don't show. Let's do some show. We're going to print a file which I found on Thingiverse. This file's by Rocket Pig Gaming. They've got a Patreon open and they were nice enough to give away a sample on Thingiverse. Now this file prints without any kind of support. It has lots and lots of bits that stick out, it's got ridges, it's got tentacles, it's got overhangs but nothing over 50%, so you shouldn't need any kind of support there. I have started from afresh. I've levelled the bed of my brand new Ender 3. I have made sure that it's clear and that the bed is clean. I've checked the temperature is at 115 degrees for the PLA which I'm using, and yeah, so let's pay attention to the first layer. We're going to go through each stage and make sure that every part of this print goes smoothly and we get a really nice mini at the end of it that you'll be proud of if that is your first D&D / Pathfinder / whichever role-playing game you're into print, and you're proud that that's the first print you've done. So see here, I have set the layer height at 2mm. I've got the infill density, which is the density of the stuff inside it, so basically how much it's filled in is 30%. And I've got the print temperature at 215 and the bed temperature at 60% with no support set. So okay, let's give this a slice. There we go. Okay, this is going to take about 3 hours and there is 20 grams of material going to be used and about 6.57 meters. Okay, now that I am printing, you'll notice that around the outside there is a few bits and pieces left over from an old print. Don't worry about that. I actually knew how big the print was going to be on here, so I knew it would avoid any of those, so I didn't have to scrape that off the base, and I could just start printing. So here is the first layer. I'd say it's the most important bit to get right, and yeah, this is printing really nice and smoothly. There's the first circle. It prints the perimeter of the print first, and then once that's been done, it will start filling this in. Now this takes quite a lot of time, so I'm going to speed this up a bit so you can watch the first layer printing a little bit faster than the 5 or 6 minutes it would take to print as it usually would. Right, with this running a little bit faster than usual, you'll be able to see here that, going a bit closer, that yeah, this layer's going on really quite nicely. It's smooth, there's no bubbling, there's not much furring, which is where you get sort of like a furry texture to the top of the print. And yeah, this is going on very, very nicely. Got the right height here. It's not under extruding where it's being squished down, so it can't get enough stuff out because it's touching the bed. And it's not over extruding where it's squirting out loads and loads of stuff and just not being able to lay it down fast enough, and that's when you get all kinds of nastiness. And from this angle you can just see the little ridges going along where each line is slowly painted onto the hot bed. Now that bed is at about 60 degrees, so it should hold onto there nicely and not let go of the print, so you get a nice firm adhesion to the print surface. And there we go, that is the first layer done. Now what it will do is it will go around that a few times. We'll print another few layers on top of that, and we'll come back to this when we're at the next stage. Now we've got to the infill stage. This is where we printed the first few layers on the hot bed, and it's now going to print what's called infill, which is a partial layer where it fills about, I set it for 30%, about 30% of the internal space of the Mini. See, this Mini is going to be partially hollow. The reason you do that is it makes it lighter, it uses less filament, and also just takes a lot less time. If you want to do a 100% fill Mini, that's absolutely fine, but it's going to take you 6 hours instead of 2, and it will use 3 times the amount of filament. So here we are. I've done it for a nice honeycomb shape because I like that shape. And it's just going to fill that in until we reach the next layer, and we'll catch up with it then. With the base infill done, we've now moved on to the model itself and some of the details. See here on the control panel, we are printing at 215 degrees and the bed temperature's around 60, sort of fluctuating between 59 and 60 degrees. And we're 12% into the print at the moment. Now if you look very, very carefully, you'll see that because we're printing at 0.2 millimeters, which is medium, you still got some layering there. You'll be able to see layering on the miniature just slightly. Now I think with a miniature like this, which is a sort of a weird, horrible creature, I don't think that seeing the layering will be too bad, but if you want to do a really perfect print for your second or third print, maybe do it at 0.1, which is the fine or super fine, and you'll get a much, much smoother print. But I think for this particular Mini, this is going to be really, really good. And you'll see that this is adhering to the bed there nicely, and nothing is pulling away as there's no overhangs to support yet. Now moving on to the more detailed parts, you see the infill inside the tentacles is filling about 3/4 of it, but the outside layers are a lot more detailed. This is where you can start getting problems. You notice that there's a little bit of stringing between the tentacles and a few of the other bits, but nothing to be worried about, just a couple of little bits. And what I might do is I might increase the temperature next time I print this, which will get rid of the stringing and stop it from just carrying that little extra bit over. You can also arrange a thing called Z-hop, where every time it finishes printing on one part, it lifts the nozzle up a tiny bit, moves on to the next part and lifts it down. That way you avoid stringing even more, but we'll talk about that in another video. Right now I'm quite happy with how this is turning out, and the stringing is nothing to be worried about on this.
Okay, we're about 50% through the print here, and you'll notice that the top part of this is a much more solid lump of PLA, so you're going to get a lot more infill. So the outside is the sort of the detailed shell of the Mini, while the inside you get this honeycombed layer, which is much quicker to print because there's no detail to it. It's just purely there to hold the structure together and make sure that the outside doesn't crack or doesn't warp at all. And when the thing is hardened, it'll be as strong as if you printed it 100%, because it's a nice solid structure inside, and it's not like if it was hollow, where basically you'll be able to crush it. This is going to keep it nice and solid, but also keep it light and save you some money and some filament as well. Okay, taking a much closer look here, you can see the layers where it's about 2 millimeters high. If it's like 1 millimeter high or half a millimeter high, it'd be much smoother, but it would take about 6 to 7 hours to print. This is a nice easy 3-hour print. You notice there's a tiny bit of stringing just about here, but nothing too much to worry about. Now, starting from the top and working up, you can see that there's no layering problems, there's no gaps, nothing's ever stuttered. If you do get a layer which basically looks like it's slightly out, it might mean the printer's shifted, and you might want to check to make sure your rollers on your printer are tight or loose enough and that they're not jumping around, there's no flat spots on them which are making it jump. Okay, so now the print has been completed and it's sitting there nicely adhering to the print bed. And what are you going to do? Well, you're probably going to think of picking up the sharpened spatula and having a go at it and basically attacking it and tearing it off the print bed. But no, do not do this. Remove the Bulldog clips from your Ender 3 or Ender Pro, whatever one you've got. Make sure it's not too hot so you don't burn your fingers. Take it over to your work desk. And very carefully flex and remove. You just need to bend it slightly, not bend it too much so you damage the print bed, and make sure you don't bend the base. You can see here it's been removed while it's cool, not while it's hot, so that there's no issue with it being warped and you haven't bent the base at all. So it still sits nice and flat to the table without wobbling too much. Now you see here, that is where the overhang is, but didn't go over 50 degrees, so there's nothing's fallen off, there's no stringing. Even the tentacle points there haven't had any problems. But yeah, very happy with the way this turned out for this. And I think if that was your first print, hopefully you'd be happy with it too. If you look really carefully, you can see the layering on here, because say it's printed at normal and not at fine or super fine, but it's still really nice. And yeah, as long as you don't look too closely, it looks very good. And putting a layer of primer on here, like a white or a yellow filler primer, will help get rid of that and smooth it out even more. Then you can undercoat the thing and then either leave it in its base colour or you can paint it. I tend to use Sistel paints to paint these because I have a lot of them lying around, and they have a nice finish. I think contrast paints from Sistel would do very nicely on this model, as it would bring out all the nice details, all the ridges and all the tentacles and details and this horrible, disgusting Cthulhian monster. I hope these tips and tricks help you with your first 1 or 2 prints on your Ender 3 or Ender 3 Pro, or whichever FDM printer you're using. If you're using a resin printer, not my bag, I don't tend to use them myself. I'm sure there's loads of other people on YouTube who can help you out with that. But I hope these FDM tricks gave you a bit of an idea of what to expect and what to look out for your first few prints. Thank you for watching 3D Printed Soup. I try and upload 1 or 2 videos a week with these uncertain times, maybe more, maybe less, but click the notification button to know when I upload them, and please click the subscribe. It helps me out, helps the channel out. It just means that I can continue doing this. So thanks very much for watching. Stay safe.